Yeah, let's try and explain to listeners a bit more about what kind of government we're dealing with there. That before the war, there were massive protests in Israel against Netanyahu and his very right-wing cabinet. A lot of unease internationally about West Bank settlers who seem completely out of control with the state's blessing. I mean, obviously, we've had Likud government since the 70s, on and off. Is this the most extreme government Israel has ever had?
I mean, absolutely. There's no question.
No, not close.
Yeah, I mean, it's very clear. It includes Bezalel Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir, who are, openly calling for ethnic cleansing, and they're, in the most explicit terms. And large parts of the Likud itself is speaking in these terms. So, yeah, there's no doubt. It is a very extreme government, and the things that they have been talking about and giving cover to in the West Bank are the most serious in a long time.
And I wonder, therefore, what kind of pressure are they susceptible to when people talk about, what the US should do, or the UK or other countries put pressure on Netanyahu for a ceasefire? How because they don't seem that pliable.
It should be said, once, a bit after the war started, the, centrist element joined, and they are dominant in the war cabinet. Netanyahu is not leading the military effort. It's basically the military and these ministers in cabinet. He's not in control. And what happens in the war will be negotiated between the US and the Israeli military. So for good and for bad, Netanyahu is not in the lead. And similarly, I think that the extreme right elements within the government are also have no impact on where the war is going. They do have impact on what is happening in the West Bank and within Israel, and then they are causing damage.
Because conventional wisdom says that a war favors a struggling leader. It unites the nation and so on. Polls suggest very much otherwise. What are Netanyahu's prospects? Is it that he's only going to stay in office while the war is ongoing because they wouldn't want to replace him, or is he finished sooner or later?
I mean, I think it's very difficult to see how he's not finished. I mean, first of all, this was the most devastating disaster in Israel's history in 75 years. So it's hard to see any prime minister surviving that. But he's seen as responsible in so many ways. He was the architect of the strategy of containing Hamas in this kind of hostile accommodation, very explicitly designed to prevent negotiations, to prevent any kind of two-state solution. He said it very clearly. And the idea was that Hamas can be tamed and can be kept under control. That proved disastrous. He's also, in the last year, pushed a highly divisive judicial reform, which tore the Israeli public. And he was warned by the Israeli intelligence that this is seen as a huge opportunity for Israel's enemies and that he should reconsider. And he didn't. And that's out in the open. So again, he's seen as responsible. He has not, since the 7th of October, he's almost in shock. He's not able to formulate any kind of empathetic response to the Israeli public. He's hardly met any families that were affected of casualties, hardly met any hostage families, given no interviews to Israeli media one-on-one. He's given quite a few to American networks, but not to Israeli ones. He's seen as almost missing in action. And it's, he's also not built for this. He's a populist leader built on division and incitement and culture wars. He cannot play the unifier. That's not him. And we can see him very clearly. So all of this, it's almost certain that it'll be enormous rage and anger towards him once the fighting subsides. Everybody expects that.
And obviously there's a fear, about that he could be replaced by somebody worse. I wonder, will he sort of bring down those extremists in the cabinet with him? Or is there a chance that you could have somebody even further to the right replacing him?
I can't see that. I mean, I think the most likely is elections, and the most likely outcome is Benny Gantz becoming prime minister. He's a centrist, The right wing also is to some extent, hit by this because they're seen, at least some of the figures were seen as kind of partly responsible because they pushed for this highly divisive judicial reform. Some of them will probably, Itamar Ben-Gvir will probably survive this, but Smotrich, it's not clear if he survives this politically. He might. Currently in the polls, he's not pushing. He's on the threshold of going into the Knesset, so he might be damaged. I think the right wing will be significantly reduced, at least if we trust the current polls.